Hi guys, welcome back to the lecture on what are Americans. In this video, we are going to be discussing Alexis de Tocqueville's 5 crucial values to American success as a constitutional republic, and we are also going to discuss the meaning and historical significance of the American mottos, E pluribus unum and In God We Trust. When we are finished, you will have the opportunity to design a cover sheet for Unit 1 using hand-drawn pictures that depict all of de Tocqueville's 5 American values. Okay, so let's talk about a little further back in time with a French immigrant who had moved to New York in 1759. His name is Hector St. John de Quevecoeur. So Quevecoeur was impressed by what he saw in America because he noticed that there was a mixing of different nationalities, different cultures, lots of resources available, and there were no kings and nobles in America. And he was also very impressed by Americans' work ethic. This was very different than what Europeans experienced across the Atlantic. Alexis de Tocqueville was also a French philosopher, and he was sent to America by the French government to study the American prison system during Andrew Jackson's presidency in the 19th century. And he wrote a book titled Democracy in America, and in it he describes what he sees in America, and he's talking about the social and cultural characteristics that made the United States unique. So de Tocqueville has these 5 values that he felt were crucial to the success of the United States as a constitutional republic, and he talks about them in great detail in his book, so we're just going to summarize them really quickly in the next few slides. So the first one he talks about is egalitarianism, which is a fancy word for equality. De Tocqueville notices that despite the differences in wealth, power, and intelligence, all Americans were basically socially equal, and that they all had access to this free land that promoted equality. The only 2 exceptions to the egalitarian society, of course, were the treatment of slaves and the treatment of Native Americans. But for the most part, Americans were considered equal. This was very unique in the eyes of de Tocqueville, who comes from France, where during this time, France was had come from the estate system where everybody was lumped into the third estate, and there were very few people in the first and second estate who controlled all of the land and all of the money and all of the political power. So he was impressed that the constitutional republic in the United States afforded people this free land and the opportunity to be equal. The second characteristic he talks about in his book is populism. It's also known as popular sovereignty. Basically, he says that the common people participate in the government. So you don't have to have a special title. You don't have to be wealthy. Anybody can participate in government. And he found this very impressive. He also talks about liberty. And he says that people are protected from the tyranny of the majority through the Constitution. And also that Americans were devoted to the rule of law. He also mentioned that their religious faith helped strengthen individual liberty and kept people in line. So the next one is individualism. De Tocqueville talks about how Americans were free to flourish without any hereditary rules. You didn't have to do the job that your dad did. Jobs weren't passed down from generation to generation. You could pursue your own destiny in America, and that was impressive. And then he finally talks about laissez-faire. So laissez-faire is a French term for hands-off, basically. And he talks about how the American economy is successful because they had this hands-off approach, where the government did not interfere in any of the economic activities, didn't regulate businesses, didn't tell people what to sell, what to buy, how much to pay for it. They pretty much left business alone, and the economy had done very well as a result. Okay, so quickly we'll talk about the American mottos. So there's these 2 mottos that we see in a lot of like our money or a lot of the presidential seals or federal seals. The first is E pluribus unum, which is the Latin phrase that translates to out of many comes one. So this is the motto on the Great Seal of the United States, and it's a symbol of how many states joined together despite their differences and became one strong nation. And then lastly, there is "In God We Trust," which is our official national motto. We find it on all our money. It was also embedded into the Star Spangled Banner. And even though it's been challenged in courts many times because people claim that it violates the separation of church and state in the Constitution, the courts have always ruled that the meaning is ceremonial, not religious, and therefore it remains on our money. So these are some of the characteristics of Americans in the United States. If you guys have any questions, come see me in class, and I'll also explain how to create your cover sheet using the information from this lecture. All right, so thanks for watching.